My sisters and brothers all, we began this plenary session, a plenary session of the 59th Convention of the National Council of Negro Women. And we began it as our folks taught us to begin a day. We begin it in prayer. A prayer that will be lifted up by our national chaplain, our Sister Rev, Reverend Dr. Barbara Skinner. Among her many wonderful, admirable traits is her sensitivity to moments, her concern for others. And so when we talked yesterday and we both so regretted that technology kept her from being with us, of course, we both appreciated that the bishop did more than come through for us. But Sister Rev in our conversation said, tell me, are there any of our sisters who need a special prayer? And I did request of her to put in our plea for the healing powers of the ultimate doctor for our sister, Melanie Campbell. So thank you, Sister Rev. I can't really welcome you because you're in your own circle. This is your sisterhood. But I turn to you now to pray for all of us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sisters, brothers, all, let us pray. O Lord our God, caretaker of our souls and our rock in a weary land, God, we praise you for connecting this powerful sisterhood in this virtual National Council of Negro Women's 59th Convention. God, today we stand firmly on your promise to keep in perfect peace those whose minds are stayed on you. Still, Lord, we are honestly moved to ask the question, how can our hearts and minds be at peace when the foundations of law and order have collapsed, when justice has been perverted in the courts before grand juries for Breonna Taylor, when systemic racism digs deeper into the roots of the fiber of our nation, threatening to take us back to an even darker time aided by wickedness in high places, when millions like our dear sister Melanie Campbell, snatched from the jaws of death, are ravaged by COVID virus, when women of color are not even safe from state-sponsored murder in our own homes, and when millions face evictions, joblessness, and loss of life-sustaining business. But God, before we even tempted to cower in fear over attacks to our very humanity, our faith is strengthened as we remember King Jehoshaphat's question to you when overwhelmed by a powerful enemy. He said, "Oh Lord God of our fathers and mothers, are you not the God who is in heaven? You rule over all the kingdoms of nations. Power and might are in your hand, and no one can withstand you. For we have no power to face this dreadful enemy attacking us. We don't even know what to do, but our eyes are on you, God. Our eyes are on you. So God, we ask you this morning to keep our minds, our spirits, our hearts, and our eyes virtually gathered here, stayed on you, the only one who is sovereign over the pandemic, the White House, the Congress, the Supreme Court, and our state's voting machinery. Keep our eyes on the one who said, I will never leave or forsake you. And to keep our eyes on the one who has already sustained us through this pandemic, that we might do the work of peace, justice, and equality to which you have called us, the work which we in the National Council of Negro Women will now do. In your holy and righteous name, Lord God, we pray this prayer. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And it is with such certainty that we know that our Mother, Father, God has heard you as you prayed for all of us. My sisters, I really do my best to avoid trite and sort of hackneyed statements. But when I searched for a way to introduce Dr. Kimberly Jeffries Leonard, I kept coming back to this phrase, although I know it's a little hackneyed. You see, Sister Kim, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. Now, that's going to take a miracle because given the age difference between us, that's asking a lot. But I say that because of my profound respect, admiration, and deep love for who you are, and of course, for what it is that you do. So now I turn to introduce this individual that I want to grow up to be just like. Sister Kim earned her doctorate degree in psychology from Howard University. The good doctor, as you know, serves as president, the 17th president of the Links Incorporated and the Links Foundation. She has a very broad background that includes expertise in developing, implementing, evaluating, and guiding public health and behavioral health programs, their policies, all of the legislation that is related to that. And she does so with subject matter expertise in what is called minority health. She also has that kind of expertise that is needed on issues about AIDS, substance abuse, cardiovascular disease, health disparities, healthcare reform, re-entry, and criminal justice issues. She's very concerned about behavioral health, and she certainly has her heart and her expertise focused on issues in our community around trauma, women's health concerns. Our Sister Kim has a deep commitment to community service. She's internationally recognized and admired as the 17th president of the Links Incorporated and the Links Foundation. But her community service actually extends beyond this organization that we so associate with service. She is also director at large on the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network and a member of the board of directors of the Black Women's Agenda Incorporated. Now, here in our beloved National Council of Negro Women, we're mighty proud to know Sister KJL. We know her as the president of one of our treasured, they all are, so I'm sorry, I gotta rephrase that, of one of the treasured affiliate organizations. Now, there's so many of us in NCNW who are links, so I don't need to say very much about this organization. And yet I can't resist. I can't resist doing this because it involves bragging, frankly. It involves bragging about this organization that is focused on service and friendship. The links are focused on service in that profound way that we were reminded of as we grew up. That doing for others is just the rent you've got to pay for your room on earth. As one of the largest and among the oldest women's voluntary service organization, today the Links has a membership of 15,000 and growing professional Black women in 288 chapters across our country, the Bahamas and the United Kingdom. The Links contribute more than 1 million, and this is documented. As a Link, I know you got to document this. 1 million hours of community service every single year. And so it's with really a whole lot of pride and pleasure that I invite my colleague, my sister, my friend, the woman I say I want to grow up to be just like, to bring us some words this morning.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I am truly honored. To my two tri-chair sister presidents, President Dawson and President Murphy, officers and board members of the National Council of Negro Women, my sisters of the Links Incorporated, members of NCNW, and all joining us today, good morning. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I am rejoicing today because this is the day that the Lord has made, a day that the Lord has allowed me to see, and a day that allows me to greet you on behalf of the over 16,000 members of the Links Incorporated in 288 chapters, 41 states, the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and the United Kingdom. I am rejoicing because the Lord has made today another day that we have the privilege to be here in such a time as this, to fight for what is right and to make our voices heard. In 1935, when the National Council of Negro Women was founded by the great Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, that was such a time as this. And Dr. Bethune knew that there was work to do. For over 50 years, Dr. Dorothy Height rejoiced in each day because she knew too, she was working for such a time as this. And today, on this day that the Lord has made, our time calls for resilience and resurgence. Resilience and resurgence. On this day, we are here virtually because with all that we face, we can't afford to miss even one opportunity to share information, forge coalitions, and craft plans that result in the equality, justice, and freedom due to every man and woman in our nation. What we know is that some things change and some things stay the same. The battle for freedom and justice is one we fight every day, sometimes several times a day. It's not a new fight, but rather one that began generations and generations ago. When facing an old enemy, we must use time-tested and true weapons. I have drawn strength from my favorite song, a song that is really like an old friend to me. Written as a poem in 1900 by James Weldon Johnson and set to music in 1905 by his brother John, Lift Every Voice and Sing is known as the Black National Anthem. However, for us, it is so much more. That song tells our story. It draws us together, and it gives us the inspiration and the plan of action we need to keep marching on until victory is won. The music gives us comfort, and the lyrics are a call to action. Consider them with me. Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Now, if I could actually carry a tune, I would have sung that for you. But those who know me know that I cannot. And so I just had to recite. But my friends, look around and see young and old, men and women, Black and white, join together in peaceful protest, demanding justice. From Minnesota to Kentucky to Georgia, their chants and marches cause heaven and earth to ring in harmony. Together, if we keep demonstrating, demanding, and voting, we will truly achieve liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. It may not be evident now, but the hour of our victory and rejoicing is ahead. Slaves who seemed powerless eventually won freedom. African Americans who bore the weight of Jim Crow segregation won the right to travel, work, and vote as full citizens. These victories allow us, even in these dark times, to find hope. There will be a time when police officers don't shoot to death a woman asleep in her bed or stand on the neck of a man until he can't breathe, killing him in the street. One day we will not be racially profiled, walking home from the store in a hoodie or jogging in our own neighborhoods. Our children will have a pipeline to success, not to jail. Our votes will not be suppressed. Our lives will matter. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. While we don't yet have all we've dreamed of, worked for, and have a right to, things are changing. George Floyd's death sparked outrage worldwide. Major corporations affirm that Black lives actually do matter. Entertainment powerhouses are opening doors to include African American voices in both the stories and in the production. Even Uncle Ben is no more. These are just some of the changes we see, but they are just the beginning of a new day begun. We must be vigilant to ensure that these aren't superficial concessions, but the true dismantling of systemic racism. That will be a truly won victory. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. We knew the road would not be easy. It never was, and it never is. We face police, policies, and decisions that each day keep us as second-class citizens. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who has brought us thus far on the way, thou who has by thy might kept us and led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. This is my favorite verse, and it echoes what my sister President Dawson said yesterday. God has us. He sees us. He's telling us something, and we must listen, and we are listening. We have come this far by faith, and we know we've got a mighty long way to go, but the Lord knows, and he sees where we're going. Each day lately brings more and more examples of the further we have to go and the path we have to take. From Kentucky to the impending Supreme Court justice fight, to just our day-to-day interactions as Black women and Black people fighting just to live. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. While we all represent different organizations, we are all here for the same reason, with the same mission and purpose to ensure that our people survive and thrive with equity and dignity. Our resilience and our resurgence reflects this. Look around this virtual room and see how many of us are gathered here. Can you imagine? Thousands of us here under his hand, fighting for the same purpose. We are amazingly blessed to have the privilege in this day to do this work, because if not us, then who? My sisters and brothers in this struggle, we have work to do. We can't get weary now. We won't get weary now. We are not tired. We are not resting. A Kenyan proverb says, one whose seeds have not sprouted does not give up planting. That's for Madam Chair. So to all of us gathered here in this historic gathering, let us lift every one of our voices and sing. We have a lot to say. Let's sing of our hopes and our dreams and our battles. Let's sing of our triumphs. Let's sing the names of those for whom we fight. As our forefathers and mothers did, we will lift our voices as we march, protest, and vote until full freedom comes to each and every one of us. The Lord has blessed us with another day to do this work, this necessary work. So we will keep our voices lifted in this day, in this time, in such a time as this. Because, my friends, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Thank you.
And we thank you, Sister President. Now, my sisters, after that prayer from Sister Rev, after those words of such substance and inspiration from our Sister President KJL, if you're not charged up, then somebody needs to take your pulse. We are ready now to begin the business that we have been called here to do. The first item of business is the third report of the Credentials Committee. I am told by our parliamentarians, and I just checked again, that it does require a vote, but we should be able to do this quite expeditiously. And so the chair now recognizes the Honorable Patricia Watkins Lattimore to present the third credentials report. I ask that our tech team please unmute the microphone of Honorable Lattimore.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
I have forwarded the list of names of the voting members of the 59th Biennial Convention as of 9:55 p.m., September 25, 2020. The final credentials report will be provided during Plenary 5 on September 27. The data is as follows. National officers 17, national affiliate delegates 73, standing committee chairs 11, section delegates 290, life members 492, legacy life members 124. Total voting delegates 1,007. Non-voting members and guests 765. Exhibitors, companies, and sponsors 65. Staff 11. Your grand total number of participants as of last night, 1,848. On behalf of the Credentials Committee, I move that the revised roll of delegates hereby submitted be the official roll of voting members of the 59th Biennial Convention.
Thank you, Sister Lattimore. The chair would be very pleased now to receive a motion to accept this report from the Credentials Committee. Is there someone prepared to make that motion?
Madam Chair, this is Beverly Smith. I so move to make the motion to receive the credentials report,
Thank
to
you.
adopt the credentials report.
Thank you, President Smith.
And
May I-
Paulette Walker has her hand raised for.
Oh, I would lovingly call upon the good Dr. Walker, please.
Madam Chair, I second the motion.
The motion has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the report? Excuse me. Hearing none, this motion requires a majority vote. I ask that we, as quickly as possible, please cast our votes. Do so in 5 minutes. Sister Elsie, perhaps there are some who joined us today who were not with us yesterday. Please quickly describe the process.
All right, good morning. Make sure that you retrieve the email with the subject, Credentials Committee Report Adoption. You will click the link in the email sent to you and make sure that you're voting on that motion. That should be the only one that you received this morning. Select yes to vote for the motion, no to vote against, and please submit. Press submit. And you will have 5 minutes, as Madam Chair indicated, to cast your vote. Tech Factory, if hopefully you have started, or if you could please start that countdown clock. Thank you. Madam Chair,
Yes,
if I might make a quick announcement
please.
while the vote is continued. We want to just make sure that if anyone has any questions, that you make sure that you put those questions in your chat or Q&A. If it is something that needs to be addressed to the body, please raise your hand as well, but only if it needs to be actually addressed to the body. And Sister Summerlin is making sure that she is monitoring those, and we'll be conversing just to make sure that you can be called upon expeditiously, unmuted, etc. So we want to make this go as smoothly as possible. So if you have technical issues or anything else that you want to direct to Summerlin, to Sister Summerlin, or anyone on the technical team, please just put that Q&A in the chat as opposed to raising your hand for those specific things. So raise hands only if it's something that needs to be addressed to the entire body. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Voting is closing now. The results are 462 for, 1 against.
Thank you very much. Clearly, we have accepted the third report from the Credentials Committee. Now it is a moment of great excitement as I turn over our programming to Dr. Thelma T. Daley, who is serving, as you all know, as this year's 59th Convention's Program Chair. Dr. Daley will lead a discussion on intergenerationality. Dr. Daley.
Yes, Madam Chair. Are all of the panelists in place?
Here and accounted for.
I see Leah. Where's Ari? Where's, oh,
Sorry, I'm here, Dr. Daley.
okay, where's Alexis?
I'm right here. I'm right here.
You are here?
I'm here, yes.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, then we can start because I know some of you were waiting for 10 o'clock. So, okay.
Dr. Daley, would you like us to take a break?
Oh, what?
10?
Okay, let's take like a 5-minute break only just to make sure we're in place. How would that be?
All right.
Okay, great.
Especially
5 minutes.
Especially
okay.
Yes. 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I was jumping ahead. Let's take a break and begin at 10 o'clock.
Now we can begin earlier if you wish. It's 9:44, so just take 5 minutes.
All right, 5 minutes and we'll be back.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
morning to all of you out there. I'm so sorry I can't see you, but I can imagine that you're there all around the gallery from all around the country. And I'm just going to wave to you, but I hope you can see my wave, but I sure can't see you. But I'm going to give you that distant hug right now, that distant hug that we all need, because I think we all need that distant hug. And I can feel your hug. You're squeezing me real tight. I feel your hug coming to me. I feel your hug. Yes, yes, yes. So the title this morning is called Intergenerational Perspectives. Perspectives to me means views, your views, and intergenerational can mean certain things to us. Most people, when they think about intergenerational, they think about age in some way, but it's also cultural perspectives too. And I just like to remind you that culture is fluid, culture is learned, and culture can be changed, and it embraces many, many factors. But yes, you think about age, and I remember when I was a little girl, everybody said, "Oh, when you reach 40, you're over the hill." And some of you may remember people saying you're over your hill at 40, and Lord, you kept saying, "Oh, I hope over 40, I'm gonna be over the hill." I remember also in my studies, we used Erickson's stages of development. And they said every year, every age, there was something. I also remember Don Super's whole thing in career development. And he took it up to 70. Well, so many people are living beyond 70. All of that's obsolete today. In terms of that, all of that stage theory. But as you begin, I want to throw something out to you, because now we hear people saying Gen Z and Gen X and all of that. And some of us don't know what Gen Z means, nor what Gen X means. But they say in terms of today's lingo, that if you were born between 1925 and 1945, you have a silent generation. So if you're on this panel now, just listen to that. If you were born between 25 and 45, you are in the silent generation. Now I have to tell you, I'm in the silent generation, and I know I'm silent because I don't talk much and I'm very shy. So so that kind of fits me, I guess. I don't know. But also, I keep hearing people talk about the boomers so much, the boomers, the boomers, the boomers. Well, the boomers, according to today's language, are those who are born between 1946 and 1964. Now watch it, because I'm going to ask you if you are a silent generation or if you're a member of the boom, if you are boomers. Now they also tell me that the Gen X's, if we have any Gen X's up there, that you were 1965 to 1980. Now, I don't know if there are any Gen X's up there, because I have not seen any of your birth certificates, and women have a way of sometimes say, what age did I give this group? What age did I give my insurance company? What age did I do here? Women have a way. Sometimes I have to think, what did I tell these people here about my age, you see? And then they say, for those born after 1997, you're called Gen Zs. Now I'm going to go around, and I want you to give your name. I want you to tell me 2 things about yourself that we don't know. And I want you to tell me if you're a silent generation, if you're a baby boomer. Oh, the millennials. I forgot the millennials in there. If I skip the millennials, all of you know that you're millennials, and you know where you fall in there as millennials. I'm sorry about that. But I know that no one is up here with Tom Brokaw called the greatest generation, those born between 1901 and 1924. So nobody on this panel is in the greatest generation, even though you may think you millennials up there, that you are in the greatest generation, okay? Now I'm going to start with Alexis, the Honorable Alexis Herman. So would you tell them your name, 2 things about you, And whether you are a millennial or Gen X or Gen Z or silent or whatever, a baby boomer or whatever you might call yourself up there, the Honorable Alexis. We can't hear you.
I think someone else was controlling my mute button, Dr. Daley.
Okay.
I thought I could control me, but here I am.
Okay.
Leave it to you to give us the morning's education lesson on generations. Thank you for that. Well, I am a boomer. I am a member of what's called the baby boom generation. And they used to call us the most powerful generation. The way Brokaw talked about the greatest generation, because we influence more than any other generation the economy and our buying habits. But that's being overtaken now by the millennials, as you probably know. So 2 things about me. First, a lot of people don't know, since I'm talking to my NCNW family, and I want to thank Dr. Cole, first of all, and you for this extraordinary virtual convention that we're having, that I was actually the first young adult vice president for the National Council of Negro Women. And it's something that I was always very proud of. And the second thing, I think, from an NCNW stat, I've been a member of the council since I was 13 years of age, and I grew up in the section of Mobile, Alabama, under a wonderful woman by the name of Miss Bestch, who was best friends with Mary McLeod Bethune. So those are my 2 facts about me.
Okay, wonderful. And Sharah, who a member of the board, you're next.
Good morning. I'm Sharah Denton, and 2 things about me. I was born and raised in Stockton, California. So I'm a California native, and I'm the oldest of 3 girls to the late Dr. Jennifer Sampson. And I just learned that I'm the beginning phase of the millennial generation. I thought I was in a different generation, but I'm a millennial.
What did you think you were in? What did you think you were in?
I thought I was in the generation before that.
Okay. Leah.
Good morning. My name is Leah Levi. 2 things about me. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, born and raised. So I come from the city. And a second thing is that I chartered a section of NCNW at my undergrad. And I am
Widener. Wasn't that Widener in Pennsylvania?
Yes, Widener University.
Widener, because that's kind of a different university for us in Pennsylvania. Tell them that.
It was. So Widener was a PWI. So NCNW was an unfamiliar organization to the campus. So when I brought it there, it sparked change all across the university. And now the population has changed. There are way more African Americans and especially women. I am Generation Z. I thought I was millennial. I'm right on that line, but I just learned I'm Generation Z.
You think you are what now?
I thought I was a millennial, but I'm Generation Z.
You're a Z. All right, a Z. Yeah. So you may be the youngest person on this panel up here this morning.
I might be.
Keep that perspective going up there. Okay. Well, the next person is someone whose name is Dr. Johnetta B. Are you ready?
I am ready, especially because I've been called on by you. Dr. Thelma T. We have such respect and affection for each other, and these are the ways that we enjoy calling each other's names.
Just take it off the hook.
Dr. Thelma T., I want to read the definition of my generation. The generation of people born before that of the boomers, those roughly born from the mid-1920s to the mid-1940s. So that gets me born in 1936. But here's
that's bracket too. So I'm in that. That's where I am too. In there, I was born before 1945, so I'm right in there.
Well, we're together. But here's what I want to question.
Yes.
It says that we are perceived to tend towards conformism or restraint in their outlook and behavior. Now, I don't think that really describes me. In fact, I respectfully say, I don't think that really describes you. Because I think we have each been pushing against what is the way that perhaps we were supposed to be. And I'm very proud that we bring that pushing against it right into the National Council of Negro Women. Something you may not know about me, I can be described as someone who gets in the kitchen and can burn. I'm really a good cook. And I also love to cook. And with my husband, it's a source of renewal and relaxation and real pleasure. The other thing you may not know, because I've certainly spoken so much about the privilege of actually knowing and being mentored by Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. But what you may not know is that I also had a very dear relationship with a shero in the Jacksonville chapter, Gertrude Peel.
Oh, Miss Peel.
You see, you didn't know that.
Miss Peel.
Miss Peel. And so each of us, I suspect, can say, who was it that really either brought you into NCNW or so expressed for you the best of what NCNW is?
Yes. Now, Ariana, are you there and ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Go right on.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ariana Brazier. I go by Ari, and I use the pronouns she and her. So if you're not referring to me by my name, you can say she or her. Two things that people may or may not know about me. The first one.
Tell them what you are. Where do you fall on this?
Oh, I'm in the millennial generation.
You're what?
I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial, all right?
Yes, ma'am. I was born in 94.
See, we run all the way across. That's excellent. Yes.
And two things people may not know about me is one, I was born in Guam, which is an island closer to Asia. I'm the daughter of two military personnel. My dad was a captain in the Navy, and my mom retired after some years in the Army. So I was born in Guam, and then we moved back to the States. The second thing is I have three brothers, two older brothers and one younger brother, and they're my entire world, my inspiration, And I'm grateful and forever indebted for their mentorship and their inspiration in my life.
Wonderful. Now I want you to use your chimerical ability up here. And I want you to go back to when you were either pubescent or beginning your adolescent stage. And I want you to think about that term. What did you value when you were just entering, you leaving pubescence and going into adolescence? What did you value and what was your worldview? And what do you value today? And how would you sum up your worldview? And I just want us all to clip it. I don't want you to give me a long paragraph, but you might want to think about at least two things you valued that time, and maybe a sentence as how you saw the world. So I'm asking for, what did you value? How did it change? What do you value now? What was your worldview then? And what is your worldview now? And so why don't you start, the Honorable Secretary of Labor? I don't see your picture up here, but I know you're somewhere there. Alexis?
Someone keeps controlling my, yeah, you got me now. Okay.
Stay unmuted. Everybody stay unmuted right now, because I don't know. See, I'm so spontaneous. I don't write down questions and sentences that I'm going to ask you up here. So you better stay unmuted for me, okay?
Yeah, I did, but someone keeps muting me. So anyway, I know better because I know you're spontaneous. You're never scripted, and that's the part of the beauty of your leadership. You just flow. So what did I value? I valued people who, to me, were fighting for change and wanting to make a difference. You got to remember, I'm from Mobile, Alabama. I saw the world in terms of black and white. And so it was always about fighting in some way the struggle to make a better way for Black people. That's how I grew up. My dad was a big member of the NAACP, and that's another whole story of what happened when he got beaten by the Klan. So, you know, from the age of 5, when I saw my father beaten by the Klan, I just have always had that in me. Now, you asked the second part. It hasn't really changed. It hasn't really changed for me. I've carried that over into adulthood. And I just always want to be in the middle of meaningful change where I believe that I can contribute to making a difference.
And so your whole world, how did you see the world then? Was the world kind of down for you or suppressing? How did you see the world?
I saw the world growing up again in Alabama as black and white. That's how I saw it. And I think, like most young Black kids, we didn't feel oppressed because you always had a family environment and folk around you that made you believe you were as good, as not better than the next person. And so there was an energy that always pushed us forward, even though we knew we were in a terribly segregated environment that was all around you. You know, white signs, colored signs, but you had to push through. So yeah, it was oppressive from them, but not inside of me. That's how I felt.
And my president, Johnetta B.
Dr. Thelma T., I could say to everything with some editing of details that our honorable sister Alexis has said, I could have said. Born before she, but nevertheless born in those almost unspeakably horrific days of legal racial segregation. I mean, to grow up as a kid and see a sign in a park that said, no Negroes, no Jews, no dogs allowed. And so I valued any and everything that challenged that kind of systemic racism. But I also valued, and I still do, women. Blessed to be the daughter of a righteous Black woman. Blessed to be mentored by great women like Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune and my first grade teacher, and you have no way of knowing, Miss Bunny Vance. And so from the very beginning, I knew I was just viscerally, I came to understand intellectually opposed to injustice. But I also grew up knowing we were going to make that change one of these days, and that women would be very much at the center of making that happen.
Okay, and Sharah and Ariana and Leah, I'm going to go right down so you can go one from the other.
Dr. Daley, this is Sharah. I would say as a child, I valued seeing us as people, making history, doing things, making a change. At the time, I didn't realize how powerful we could or are at the time as a child. I was very naive to that as a child. Growing up in a Baptist church where my mom was a choir director, my uncle was the pastor, I was always in the church and I always saw the men in the forefront, but I didn't really see women. So now that I'm almost in my 40s, I love us as Black women. I love seeing Black women in the forefront, women speaking up for change. There's no fear anymore. We're relentless now. We don't care. We're voicing our concerns. We're making an impact. We're not just saying it, we're doing it. And so I would say now, looking back on my childhood, I never thought we would be in these days where we have women in high leadership roles in government, making policy changes, making a powerful difference and impact on our generations after us. So I would say that's what I value the most right now. I love us and the impact that we're making as Black women in our world and in our viewpoints.
All right.
For me, two values that I've had throughout my entire life, and I would say like pre-adolescence, it was evident in the way I dressed and the way I talked, is imagination and girl power. Like Dr. Cole said, I'm the daughter of a very righteous mother, a Black and Filipino woman who raised me to believe that I am capable because I am a woman, I'm capable because I'm Black, I'm capable because I'm Filipina. And then with my three brothers, they raised me to question everything and to believe that there's no reason I should not be on the forefront with them. So I joke often that my two older brothers sent me to Spelman College because it was my second oldest who told me that there is no other place in the world that will focus on me as a Black person and as a woman and never make me choose. I didn't know at the time that there is a second place in the world that would do that. But my brothers are a bit biased because they were Morehouse alum. And so I do believe that those are two values that are instilled in me, also by my dad, who is my basketball coach, that I'm just as competitive and I'm just as powerful. And with my mom in my ear, maybe even more powerful because I'm a woman. And I would say that has changed none whatsoever. If anything, it's the flame that fuels me every morning I wake up. It's the girl power and knowing that with that power, I can imagine anything and I can execute it.
But I want to go back to you, Ari. I'm not going to let you off the hook because you heard our panelists Alexis and our panelist Johnetta up here talk about, I don't want to say the black and white water in those days and the segregation. Did you feel into that? Did you see that? Or how do you feel when they talk about that?
Oh, I feel it. I was raised in Bessemer, Alabama. And I lived in a suburb where all of my neighbors had farms. We were the only Black family on the street, but the white families I attended school with were not allowed to visit me because they thought I lived in the hood. Bessemer had its own reputation. They sold Confederate flags on my street corners. So I grew up fearing that if slavery ever happened again, it would just be me missing from my neighborhood. It would just be me missing from my classroom. So I did experience much of that. And listening to their experiences, I would say that it wasn't on the scale. Fortunately, I was not fearing for my physical safety every time I walked out of the house in the same way. But I was thinking about my physical safety. I was conscious of it. And I always go back to my family because family is just everything to me. I'm grateful that I had a group of family members and parents who I could come home to and say, I didn't like what I saw. I don't understand what I saw. I don't understand why I'm being treated this way. I grew up in a house where we were very open about these kinds of conversations. And I do believe that's one reason why I am able to be more vocal and I am able to question and think beyond what I was seeing in that moment and to know that it doesn't have to be this way.
Okay, Leah.
Yes. So, and if I could be open, I'm going to be a little open in my answer. But I would say faith.
Just feel free. Be very candid. We hope this is a very candid discussion. All right.
Will do. So for me, I would say faith and change. Faith in the regard that I was raised by a strong woman who was a preacher. So at an early age, she always installed prayer and faith and believing in God to get through my trials and tribulations in me. So I always looked to that and any struggles that I had. But I didn't, at a young age, I didn't know so much about the struggles between Black and white until about 5th grade. And I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. And that's when I started encountering the N-word and not being accepted in the school that I was in and in the neighborhood I was in. And that's when I was touched in elementary school by a white male. And when I came forward about it, I was not accepted. They didn't believe me. And it took for me and my mom to go through the NAACP with that school to even get something to happen of the situation. So for me, that was my first experience with feeling different or feeling like I was inferior for my race and also for being a woman, because I felt like I did not have a voice. And that was another reason that I wasn't listened to. So coming from there is when I started really being an advocate for change. In every school that I was in, whether it was middle school, high school, college, I was always advocating for women and our voice, because I feel like often we are silent and we are muted, especially in the situations that we go through and we speak about them and often we're not heard. It may be heard for a second and then it's dismissed and everyone forgets about it and moves on. But I feel like the more that we continue to have these conversations and continue to speak about our experiences, is when really people will be heard and change will come about. So I've always been, and even today, valued change and valued my faith, because I feel like that's the driving factor in me always trying to speak about these occurrences and try to advocate.
And if any of you up there on the panel want to say something to each other, you can do that. So don't just let it be my flowing to you, but I'm gonna throw out a question to you because you're all very strong. You're very, very strong persons up here. But going through life and whatever phases we've gone through, this is a question I want to throw out to you. Have you ever felt invisible? Have you ever felt smothered? Have you ever felt smothered or invisible? And I have to tell you, I guess I put the word invisible in there because I have a habit of going back, rereading old classics. And just a couple of days ago, I reread The Invisible Man, Ralph Ellison's Invisible. I just finished it a couple of days ago, okay? So have you ever felt invisible? Have you ever felt smothered? You know, I can tell you in working in a real white environment for the longest part of my career. After I finished George Washington University, the doctoral studies there, everything I was saying before, whatever I said now, they acted as though they listened more, okay? But maybe I was invisible before. Maybe I was smothered. Have you ever felt smothered or invisible? Anybody, go right on. Go ahead.
Dr. Daley.
Try.
I would say that growing up biracial, I felt that way for a long time, trying to find my identity. I grew up with raised by a strong Black woman, and I didn't have a relationship with my white father. And to be told at a predominantly white school, or be called the N-word for the first time, and my mother had never taught me that. My mom always taught me to love myself, to accept myself, and to be strong and resilient. But I think when it was brought to my attention that I was a little different than my classmates when I was in second grade, and my best friend couldn't play with me no more because my mom was the N-word, it did something to me as far as trying to search where I fit as a woman and as a Black woman. And my mother told me that even though I was biracial, I would always be viewed as a Black woman, and to hold my head up high about that. Don't let anyone define who I am. But I will say that for a long time, it did something to me to know that I was different. And I didn't know really why that was a problem at that time. So I would say I went through a phase for a while where I was trying to figure out where I fit in, because I was too Black for the white side, but then too white for the Black side. So it was just a constant battle trying to find out identity and find out where I fit. And I think when we don't take the time to really accept our differences, that can really cause a problem with us, even within our own communities. And being one of maybe one or two Black girls in my class at that time, it definitely made me feel like I was smothered and like I didn't have acceptance, because I was somewhat called different or seen as different because of that.
I want to join in, if I may, by first genuinely thanking our three sister wings for your openness, for your authenticity. In the chat box, Ari wrote, yes, the personal is political. It is. It is. I want to very quickly, if I may, Dr. Thelma T. Daley, tell a story. And it sort of echoes or mirrors what you were saying. I was walking through an airport in Atlanta. And, you know, you could say by then I'd been the president of Spelman College and Bennett College, and, you know, had been the director of one of the Smithsonian museums. But anyway, I'm walking through the Atlanta airport, and a white woman came up to me. And she was really quite pleasant and said, "Oh, it's so nice to see you again." And I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, but I don't think I know you." And she said, "But we were just together last night." I said, "No." And then she turned to become indignant. And she said, "We were together last night. You're the one who served my table in our club in Atlanta." That's what it means to be invisible. That is, who you are is not seen. And I'm not talking about what I had accomplished not being seen, because really what was not being seen is my humanity. And so sometimes, as old school as it sounds, dearest wings, there really is something in saying this struggle just continues. But I want to add before someone else shares that I think there really is something that pushes back on invisibility. And that is speaking up and speaking out. And one of my sheroes who I share with Audrey Lorde, that extraordinary Black, lesbian, feminist, professor, poet, once said, your silence will not protect you. And so I thank the Mother, Father, God, there is an antidote to invisibility. It's called action.
Okay. It's open if anybody else wants to chime in.
I'll share.
I will speak. Well, go ahead, Ari. Go ahead, darling.
You sure you got it? You can go ahead.
No, I'm going to defer to you, and then I'll speak.
I was gonna say that I think, like, listening to Sharah, I was brought back to my senior year of high school, and the moment I knew I was going to an HBCU, there was a Black man on death row in Georgia, and his IQ test had proven to be questionable, and people all around the country were lobbying for him to be removed from death row. And this was at the same time that people around the country were protesting because of the Trayvon Martin case, his murder. And I was in my religion class. I went to a Catholic school, predominantly white. And the nun that was teaching our religion class, I don't remember what her comment was exactly, but she used to do this thing where she would pull a devil's cape out of her closet and would pull a pitchfork out, and she'd play devil's advocate. And she pulled it out and she made some comment, and I raised my hand. I was the only Black student in my class of approximately 35. And I said, this is a race issue. There are Black people dying, and there are Black people marching in the streets because this has to do with race. And I'll never forget the way she looked at me. And there was like a long pause. And then she took her cape off, put it away, and she said, I don't know what you're talking about, and changed the subject. And I thought something in me died in that moment. I thought I would never speak again in this classroom. I thought to myself, maybe I was wrong. Like, there was like this moment where like so many thoughts went through my head. And I was really distraught because I couldn't believe that she would even shut me down like this. I had thought maybe we'd even have to argue it out, but she just completely shut me down. And there was like no recourse of action after that because I was not able to gather myself. She just moved on with the rest of the class like I had not spoken at all. And I would say that was one of the most, that was just one of the hardest experiences of invisibility that I recall to this day. But before I left that class, I had resolved, this is why I will be at HBCU. And when I got home and I spoke with my mom always had this way of saying, you know what that is, right? You know what that is. My mom never let me sit with a question about myself too long. She would be like, that's racism. You were right. And so I think back on those moments, and I'm with Dr. Cole all the way. Like, silence does not protect you. I look back and I'm so proud of myself for having made that comment. I'm so proud of myself for making that comment, period. Not trying to argue with her when she changed the subject, for not letting myself doubt myself further beyond that classroom space, for walking away with a solution, right? My solution was HBCU or bust. And I do look back on myself in that moment, and I think like that was the start of something really beautiful. And I'm really grateful for that moment. I never would ever want another woman, regardless of race, another person to ever feel that invisible and to feel that unheard. And so it is that moment that often carries me as I move through spaces, that and the words of Dr. Cole. You never enter another room without another woman, another Black woman to share that experience with. And so I do think about what it means to have been in that space and to plant seeds, and to go into other spaces and to plant seeds with my voice, and using that experience as fuel instead of as something harmful or damaging that would follow me. I'm grateful that I had other Black women in my circle that could say, no, you were right, and you should be proud, and you're righteous.
Empower me as you speak. Yes. Okay. Panelist Alexis, your hand was up.
Yes. Am I unmuted? Okay,
Yes.
great. I'm so glad you asked that question, because for me, it goes with waking up as a Black woman. And I think we have to constantly remind ourselves that when Dr. Cole, when Shirley Chisholm talked about that seat at the table, it's not just a physical seat, it's a psychological seat. And we have to know that we have earned the right to be in the room where our voices can be heard. And you can be even in the room physically and still be invisible. I've been in the room in the White House. I sit on a number of corporate boards today, and I still feel sometimes invisible, because unless something that I say is validated by a white counterpart in the room, you can feel as though, well, didn't I just say that? So you have to know that it goes with the territory of what it means to have a seat at the table. It's physical, it's psychological. And I love what Ari just said, because you have to know that when you accept leadership positions, when you accept the fact that you are going to be an agent of change, there will be many who will try and discount your voice. But you cannot let that deter you. And in my mind, I always say to myself, I remember what Dorothy Height taught me as a young woman. If the times aren't ripe, then you have to ripen the times. You have earned the right to be here, and we too sing America. So I'm so glad you raised the question.
Is there another comment on that one for you? How do you feel, panelists? How do you feel? How do you feel?
I feel
right now. I'm gonna tell you what's in the chat, but how do you feel right now? How do you feel, Dr. Johnetta?
I feel so empowered to be a part of all of this. And I really do sincerely want to thank you, Thelma T. I didn't even put the doctor on. I said Thelma T. Me to you. Thank you for imagining this panel. Thank you for being with me among the roots, not just among the roots, but among the oldest roots. But to have such openness, to hear our wings, they're just the only future we've got. I won't see it, but I'm counting on them.
But I want you to all imagine with me. I use the word chimerical, which means I'm going to imagine. I want you to imagine. Now, Dr. Bethune founded NCNW in 1935, and Mary Church Terrell and Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin founded the National Association of Colored Women in 1896, which was really one of the first major ones. But if you had the power to found an organization, stay with me now. If you had the power to create a brand new organization that might grow, just think about it with me. All right, stay with me. a brand new organization, and maybe 20 years from now, your organization would still be flourishing. You had no idea. But today you created this new organization with all of your feelings and your power. So tell me, in your new organization, would there be a feeling of tokenism? Or if so, how would you make sure that there would be no tokenism there? If you had this new organization, would there be barriers? And how would you remove the barriers? Listen to all of it now. You have this organization. If you had this new organization that nobody knows about today, but 20 years from now it's still going, how would you combat the fact that maybe some people don't feel that they are getting the leadership roles that other people might be getting? What would your organization look like? How would you combat all of this? What would you like to see in this organization? And if you were there as a founder 20 years from now, and people want to get you out of your seat, what would you do? This is your new organization. Tell me about it. Tell me what you would do. Would there be barriers? Would there be advocacy? What would it be in your brand new organization? Would people be talking about taking over? Would people be talking about tokenism and leadership? Would people be talking about respectability? Would people be talking about generational gaps? Would people be talking about getting rid of the historical legacy? Tell me about this new organization. It's open. Come on, it's open, wide open up there. Give me your words. Come on, Sharah.
Hey, Dr. Daley. I think the most valuable thing I've learned and the beautiful thing about being a part of NCNW.
No. I want you to
my organization.
What would your organization be? Okay.
It would be one that would represent every generation, every experience, one that would reflect our communities, one that would just be open to effective and continuous growth and change. Sometimes we get a little stuck in what's working, but sometimes we have to open it up to how can we grow and how can we be better and how can we sustain. So I think it's important for me to be inclusive of people with different opinions, different experiences, just different viewpoints so that you can grow and not be challenged or stuck in that consistent way of how we've always done it. So for me, it would be a way of including different perspectives and different people so that we could grow and continue to grow beyond 20 years from my viewpoint.
If I could kind of add on to that, because that is my mindset as well, is having different talent shown through our Black people. And what first popped in my head, Dr. Daley, as you were kind of describing this, what agency we would have, is the words that just recently were said by the Wells Fargo CEO, that there is no Black talent to pull from. They are having trouble meeting their minority numbers in their corporation because he says there's no Black talent to pull from. And the first thing that I think is that my agency would have and showcase all of the Black talent that we have to offer in every diverse field, ranging from education to environmental science to law to engineering to all of that, because there is so much to showcase. But I don't believe that they look for it. I don't believe that they want it. And it's so easy to just discount it and discredit it and say that there is no talent. But who is to say that we don't have talent? Who is to say that we aren't smart enough and that we don't have these skills and these brains and this capacity? And I feel as though if I could have something that, you know, showcase all of that on a grand scheme, that would be my vision.
So Leah, stay with me. what would you do with all of this talent in your new organization? How would you utilize this talent in this new organization? You know, we're not talking about the Lynx and the Deltas and the Knights of St. Peter Claver and the Charmettes and Tablators of Distinction. This is a brand new organization. Come on, how would you utilize this talent so some people wouldn't feel that they are invisible, or that they feel that they are tokens, or that they feel that they are barriers?
I think the biggest word is think tank. I think it's a matter of coming to the table and every voice being heard. Everyone has their own ideas and thoughts on what could best help this world. We're in a world right now of technological advancement and creativity and innovation. And I feel everyone coming to the table and letting your voice be heard on what your ideas are and what you would want to see, and then implementing and allowing people to have those creative spaces to work within that, to do whatever is in their mind and be able to create. And if you have different talent that stems from all of those diverse fields and paths, you will always have someone that can help see your vision through, because we're from all of those diverse backgrounds and talents. So I think for me, it just screams think tank, that we are heard and we are displaying those thoughts and those ideas and that creation and that imagination that we have in our head.
Go ahead, Ariana. I see you bursting forth. Come on, come on.
Well, for me, if I was founding a brand new organization, I would stay mindful of that one person cannot speak for all people within this demographic. I think about even like across millennials, like so many millennials get lumped into one large category, but the experiences of my 30-plus-year-old brothers is very different than my 26-year-old self in graduate school. Even the experiences Sharah and I go back and forth and often share our own stories are vastly different. And so I do think like one way we avoid like tokenism or like some of these gaps, even in the same generation, is by having multiple voices from those generations. And I think it's represented here in this panel. We have multiple voices from a couple millennials. We have a couple of people who are different generations, but they have different experiences and they have different stories. And so I would be mindful not just of the different experiences and talents, but the different identities too that exist across that same generation. And so that's one way we not only avoid barriers is by making sure we have voices that speak to those experiences, but that's one way we avoid gaps is by having multiple voices that speak to those different experiences, and that can challenge each other.
Ariana, stay with me. If you were the president, you know, you were established and say 10 years from now, you were the president. How would you break down those barriers and how would you utilize those voices so somebody wouldn't feel that, oh, it's tokenism, I don't have a voice? How would you do that?
I would have established I'm all about the personal relationships and leadership. I'm very much about bonding before all else, the sisterhood and siblinghood before all else. And so my hope in my own position now as president of a nonprofit is that I have established personal relationships to the point where people can say, I'm passionate about this. I see a future for my organization or your organization with this topic or with this experience. I would like to take a leadership role on this, right? And that might manifest in the form of a committee. It might manifest in the form of a policy report or a resolution for the organization to take on. But then I would also identify who else shares that passion, who else is capable of expanding and investing in that passion. And so my hope would be that I have personal relationships with these leaders whose voices I trust and I'm excited about, and that they would feel comfortable enough to come to me and say, this is where my research lies, this is where my passion is, and I know other people who are doing this work too, and I would like to create relationships with those people in these leadership capacities. So that's another way of not just creating opportunities for those voices, but opening the door, right? So using our gatekeeping roles to create more doors for more people to walk through.
So I heard the word mentorship up here. So would that be mentorship in your vernacular? Did you hear me, Ari?
Yes, ma'am. I was just making sure you're asking me. Yes, it would be bi-directional mentorship. I am a firm believer that mentorship works two ways. It is a multiple way relationship. We always should be learning from the people we're in relationship with. And if you're not learning, you're in the wrong relationship. And it should cross generations, it should cross genders, it should cross class. There's always more to be learned from personal lived experience. And I think that that is one of the reasons that NCNW is so near and dear to my heart, is because of the opportunities I've had to experience, not just being mentored, but to mentor people who are vastly different than me. Shout out to the Committee for the Future. The committee has been phenomenal in teaching me and showing me and modeling for me what bi-directional mentorship can really look like.
Okay, it's open. This whole new organization, it's open. It's open.
Well, I'll speak up.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, if I had the opportunity, there would be three things that would be important. First, I always say that times change, but values don't. And so for me, just listening to Ari, I want to be really clear about what are the values that are really foundational to my organization. To me, as I listened to Ari talking, she was talking about the value of being inclusive, of making sure that you had all voices at the table. Leah was saying the same thing. So I would want us to have clarity of our purpose, grounded still in our values. That would be very important to me, because I think you have to unite and organize around a values-based approach. The second thing, if I were creating this organization, it's what I think it was Leah again who talked about. We live in a digital age now. You know, I grew up in the information age, but what does it mean to take advantage of this digital age? And what are the challenges for an organization functionally? I would want a powerful vision of knowing how I could connect, I mean, literally connect the millions of African-American women through a digital communication strategy, so that we could literally just push a button and be there. And I would want to make sure that as we do the hookup in this digital age, that we have clarity of focus, because one of the things about the digital age and the impact of social media, there's so much that comes at you so fast all of the time. So I want to be clear about my focus. Is it that education pipeline, those skills, making sure we know how to find our people? I worry in this era of artificial intelligence and where we are headed digitally, that what Ari just spoke about relationships, that human touch. I worry about it breaking down in this new digital environment. So I would want to have real clarity of focus so I could stay on point with whatever it was I was driving. Those are my 3 points if I had the opportunity.
And panelist Johnetta B.
Dr. Thelma T.
And the panelist Johnetta B. I want you now to kind of clear your mind a little bit. Mm-hmm. And you're not president of this mighty, you are, this new organization. Just I want you to look at the newness of it. So I want you to kind of, don't think about, do you follow me? Because we are used to, you're with me. Okay, all right.
But Dr. Thelma, the moment you gave us that hypothetical situation, I deeply felt, but that's what we're doing. That's what we are called to do right now, is to create an NCNW for way into the future. And at the risk of just trying to capture so much within just a couple of phrases, okay, I am going to say, and I think this is what we're doing. And I think we're doing this around the two the two goals that we set 2 years ago. That this must be an organization that doesn't, for the first time, look as if it belongs at every table. And I love Sister Alexis's notion of this metaphorical table. That's what we are in the process of creating. Why? Because the social justice issues around which we need to be at a table change over time. But secondly, we are on this journey. We are on this journey toward greater intergenerationality. And anybody who thinks that we get up one morning and we are there has no real sense of the tensions, of the distances between our generations. And I'm going to just say, one of the reasons that I think I can have the perspective that I have on intergenerationality is because I was hanging out at a place that Ari Brazier knows very well. It's called Spelman College, and then Bennett. And so if we want that intergenerationality, you got to hang out with young'uns. You don't get it by reading the latest book on the importance of crossing age differences. And one of the ways that I think you get it, and Ari spoke so well on this, is when you allow yourself to be in that mentoring, mentee relationship. If you're not getting something out of this, you're being cheated. And I'll say it openly. I am not going to offer to Sharah, to Leah, to Ari, any and everything that I can, unless you're going to give me something back. You got to give me something back. I get it. I get it. This is what that African proverb means when it says, she who learns must teach, but she who teaches must learn. So Dr. Thelma T, you're not tricking me, because I am declaring we are right now in the process of creating that organization for the future.
You're right. And so I know Sharah wants to say something up here too, but we're going to have about 5 minutes for questions out there. About 5 minutes for questions. Sharah? Go ahead, Miss.
Yes, Dr. Daley. I was just going to piggyback on my sisters, Leah and Ari, because one thing I found in leadership is that connectivity with your members and those that are you're leading, it has to be a give and take relationship. And it's important to really make those personal connections and understand what those connections can mean for the growth of the organization. My strength is not singing, but I can write a press release, so I can do PR. This person can structure a program. This person can organize a youth group. And when you take the time, the extra bit of time to learn who you're leading and connect with them, then it makes for a growing organization across the table when you welcome the differences and the different talents that each one has, and be open to it. Be open to what they bring to the table, even if it's something you might not understand. Learn from one another and learn how that can work together for the better of the organization.
I think there's a word called respectability, respecting others.
Yes.
And even though people bring whatever to the table at different levels, always offer respect. And as I open it up, I want to say also that sometimes we have to cleanse our own thoughts because the blocking may be coming from us internally. And the other thing I want to say of the word, something about age, it's not the chronological age that defines me. It's the functional age.
Mm-hmm.
And that there are many people who may be 70 who function as though they are 50. And there are a lot of people who are 40 and you look at them and they act like they are 70. So it's the functionality in terms of that. And if you keep that in mind in terms of, it also helps you to cleanse something as you move. And as we've looked at this discussion today, without calling any names of any organizations, but I know that there are like about 25 affiliates out there. I know that there are 200 and some sections out there. We all operate, whether you're the national organization or you are chapter or your section, all of these aspects that we've talked about today come in play. Barriers, how people feel, how we release the energies and the gifts of others, because everybody has a gift. Everybody has a gift. And for some way, we have to peel back the layers and help them to find their gifts and to believe in their gifts. And is there a question out there? Did we open it so that there's a question? Is there a question, Elsie? We were going to have 3 or 4 questions from the audience. I know you've been sending some things in from the chat box and some of you have been texting me things, okay?
Dr. Daley, I am looking for questions now, and I think someone's going to be sending them over.
We will address them.
Yes. I don't know if you have any that were sent directly to you in the meantime while we're waiting to see if the others come through.
But if not, I'm going to start any closing statement you would like to say, because I would like to say to you that I wanted it to be very spontaneous. I did not come with prepared questions. And I remember Sharah or Ari, one of you said, where are the questions you're going to ask us ahead of time? And I said, there aren't any questions. Do you remember that? Do you remember that, Sharah? Some of you, one of you.
I remember that.
You remember that, Ari? There aren't any questions. Did I say that to you? But I want to say to you that each has been very powerful. But what would you give as a passing thought as we go through? And I'm going to start with the newest person I have met, and that is Leah. Where are you?
I'm here.
Okay. Any closing comments for the group out there?
So I would just say that, because respectability is still in my mind, that is honestly what I've experienced since I joined NCNW. Every member, every president that I've met has valued what I've had to say, and I've been able to value their knowledge and their wisdom. So I would say across the board, just to take what this organization has to offer for yourself, but to also pour back into it. And that was kind of the thought that was left with me, is that take these oats that have been soiled today, but also make sure that you pour back into whatever organizations you're a part of, whatever job you're a part of, or anything like that, but to take these nuggets that we've learned today and heard today and put those back into any spaces that you're in or any people that you encounter.
Okay. Panelist Alexis.
Oh, well, my closing remarks would be just a huge thank you. I learned something from each panelist. And so I want to close with just giving a shout out to the nugget that I took for each of you. So Leah, thank you for lifting up your faith and for keeping that alive as a value for all of us. I really appreciated you sharing that as a part of your story. I want to thank Ari for reminding us in her words today about the importance and the power of relationships, and that you're working on that. I want to thank Sharah for lifting up and reminding us again of the power and the value of education and how important that is going to be as we go forward in this digital age and environment. And I want to thank my leader, my president, Dr. Cole, for reminding me of a quote I'd forgotten many years ago. And it is simply this: I am firmly invested in the future because I intend to spend the rest of my life there. Thank you for keeping NCNW on point to handle the future and to keep pushing us in the way that you are with your extraordinary leadership. And lastly, to you, Dr. Daley, I just want to say I continue to grow and learn from you. I feel as though we've had this two-way exchange of a mentoring relationship since you first made me a Delta as a part of your presidency when I came into the sorority. But your words today where, and I'm paraphrasing, where you said, you know, age is not a time in life, it is a state of mind. So thank you for reminding us that we have to continuously be invested in the renewing of our minds as we continue to push for change and to support our beloved organization. Thank you.
Okay, who is next for final up there? And then Elsie wants to share a couple of the comments that have come in that I think maybe you should hear. Okay?
Yes, and questions are coming in now as well.
Okay, all right. So, okay. Well, let's get a couple questions and then I will close out.
Well, and Dr. Daley, when I did that, Dr. Daley, I said your name twice. I know Dr. Coleman, I was talking about her when I was speaking about the future.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Any comments from each person, just go right down. Don't wait for me to call on you. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Daley, this is Sharah again. I want to thank you and Dr. Cole for the opportunity to be on this panel. This means a lot to, I can't speak on behalf of Ari and Leah, but I will say that the opportunity to talk with you all and to express our experiences has been a blessing for us, or for me. And I want to thank Leah and Ari for just being, even though we're different ages, we all have a mutual love and respect for one another and work very well together. And that's what it's all about, sisterhood and working together and appreciating our differences. So thank you both.
Mm-hmm. Did I skip anyone? I know I didn't call on the president there, but I want to open up to the questions and the comments before I go to Dr. Cole. Elsie,
so should I share then? If you want to save Dr. Cole for last. Well, yesterday in my presentation about the cradle to prison pipeline and Black girlhood, I talked about what Adrienne Marie Brown calls the why framework. And she speaks extensively about how, as a practice, we need to be asking why. Because when we ask why, we learn that we might have done the same thing. We learn that we might be the problem. We learn that there might be solutions we never thought of. There might be ways of thinking that were never open to us. And so I would argue that that is a practice that we have to discipline ourselves into doing, is asking why, particularly of our younger members. Why is this important to you? Why is this dance cultural to you? Why is this game a legacy for you? Why do you like to read these books, right? And as younger members, I do think we can do a much more honest job of asking why of our roots and saying, like, why is the history of the organization this? Why was this person put into these leadership roles? And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have learned not just about my fellow panelists, but about the history of NCNW and the cross-cultural and the cross-generational relationships that have sustained it. And it all started with this why question. And so that would be my concluding thoughts, is to practice that why framework as part of the culture of NCNW, but also in just our daily living.
Then Ariana to say too, always share a nugget with somebody else too. And I think you do that beautifully because,
Thank you.
because many people would like, I now watch people eat. They don't know how to use the knife and the fork in the right way. And sometimes you just demonstrate those little things that help people to move up the ladder in a way. And I'm going to call on Elsie.
Okay, so we do have questions coming in now. The first one is from Dr. Bernadette Kelly Brown. What message should we be conveying to the NCNW college sections to harness their power to impact their environment?
And we have one person here who is the president for young adults. And we have one, I can imagine, may be elected to, she's on the board to be president of the young adults. So those two will have to answer that question.
I think on my end, what I would say is that welcoming them in, allowing them to participate, supporting them, being open to them and what they have to offer, not necessarily telling them what they have to offer, but listening to them and understanding what they have to offer and what they can do to continually serve and grow in NCNW and in their respective sections and communities.
Thank you, Sharah. I can only speak from my position a few years removed from college, so Leah might have something more urgent or pertinent. But I would say that one of the messages we could be conveying is just reminding the students that all of the solutions to all of our problems are not out there yet, and that they are capable of creating them, and that even within the organization of NCNW, right, there is room for innovative thinking, there is room for innovative learning and innovative questioning. And if we're going to really impact our environment as the environment and the community is constantly changing, our answers in our relationships and our responses to these changes should be rapidly changing, and they are well positioned to be that change and to create those solutions. So it's a message of openness from us. We are open to those solutions, we are open to investing in them, and we are open to the possibility that we never even thought of them.
Leah, you just established a chapter at Widener, and I know you just graduated, and I know you've just been admitted to the University of Maryland Law School, but you are closest to a college chapter, collegiate chapter, maybe than anybody up there since you just established one. Do you have a closing comment for that question?
Yeah, so I would say as well, kind of tying into what Ari has already said and emphasized, is those connections and those relationships and being open to talking. I think one thing that I noticed in the section that I established was that there was hesitancy to want to talk to the more seasoned members and to ask questions and to build that bridge, because originally they just didn't feel open because they felt a little scared, because these, it's so many seasoned women that are so influential and have so much knowledge to share with us, that it was like, we don't have as much to offer. We don't have as much insight to share. How can we build that relationship? And I think it's about not putting that block in your mind from the beginning, but to just being open, to just starting with a conversation and seeing where it takes you. Section. I think that's one thing that the Philadelphia section did with us, was definitely establish that connection. They were at all of our events when we first started trying to build our section, and that's what brought us into NCNW and how we can connect better with our seasoned members. So definitely just being open to those conversations and seeing where it takes you and not stifling your mind originally.
I don't have time for any more questions, but Elsie, you want to read to the panel 2 or 3 of their comments that have come in real fast?
Surely. I will just read the comments then. The principles and mission of NCNW are as needed today and into the future. And I'll skip the question part. Riveting panel, powerful conversation that speaks to the resilience and inherent spiritual power of Black women. It also speaks to the healing virtue of sharing our stories and our painful memories. many indications of how powerful this panel is. They are asking for a couple of requests, though, to please repeat the quote. Age is not a time in life. They were asking for that quote to be repeated so that they can jot that down.
What I said was not a quote. It was something I learned in a gerontology class at George Washington University that freed me. And it was that the whole thing was not be judged by the chronological age, but think about the functional age as opposed to the chronological age. And so when you ask me, Thelma, how old are you? I would say to you, do you mean my chronological age or my functional age? And I would say to you, my functional age is 50. But I wouldn't tell you my chronological age because you would start judging me, putting me in a box in which I am not in. I don't plan to be in anybody's box. And so your closing words, President Johnetta.
I can't not express gratitude. But I'm going to express my gratitude by saying that I think this panel that you imagined and that you brought into life, this panel, well, let's put it this way, the medium is the message. NCNW sisters, if you were a part, if you participated in any way in that group that Dr. Thelma T just stirred up, I can imagine you are feeling as I am at this moment. So hopeful. In a way, so almost anxious for us just to get on with building this future NCNW that we have the privilege of beginning to construct right now. So Dr. Thelma T, feel our gratitude, always feel our respect, and please accept our love. We come back now, my NCNW sisters, for the announcement of the work that went in so carefully, went into producing a slate, work done by our nomination committee, so ably chaired by the Sister Bishop, Leah Levi. We come back to experience what democracy really is at its best. And that is the openness of receiving nominations from the floor, as we did yesterday, because we stuck to it until we got it done. And so I now will call on the Honorable Sister Pat to give us the report of the election committee.
Okay, I've gotten myself off mute again. As most of you know, this is my seventh stint as chair of the NCNW election committee. The 59th convention is NCNW's first foray into electronic balloting, and our electronic execution was not perfect. The slate was presented by the nominations committee during plenary 1. There were 6 nominations from the floor, 2 withdrew, and the remaining 4 were placed on the ballot. 7 positions did not require balloting as there was only 1 candidate. The remaining 8 positions were on the ballot, and 607 delegates successfully cast votes. The uncontested positions were chair, president, the 3 vice chairs, treasurer, recording secretary, assistant recording secretary, and the 7 people slated for the nominating committee positions. Of the positions on the ballot, 7 at-large positions were on the ballot. We had 10 candidates on the ballot, 7 slated, 3 floor nominations. 600 votes were cast. A majority is needed of 305. The balloting results: Brenda Anderson, 466, Diane Larche, 466, Loretta Gray, 418, Regina Majors, 395, Kiana Alexander, 391, Olivia Smith, 364, Valerie Hall, 316, T. Solomon, 292, Doris Settles Maxwell, 286, Shirley Golston Key, 231. For the young adult vice position, 2 candidates on the ballot, 1 slated, 1 floor nomination. 607 votes cast, majority of 305 needed, and the ballot results: Ariana Brazier, 413, Nydia Sutherland, 188. That concludes the report of the Elections Committee. And your newly elected Elections Committee are Jacqueline Broussard, Janice Taylor, Kimberly Campbell Shields, Gina Watson, Ariane Jamerson, Yolanda Lathern, and Deborah Tucker Barrow. That concludes the report of the Elections Committee, Madam Chair.
We accept the report with profound gratitude, aware of the work required for you to make that report. Now, you know, you and I, Sister Pat, are often chastising each other for failing to go to bed on the same day that we have awakened. And I suspect that last night you and your sterling committee were up quite late. But we do thank you.
You're welcome.
Because I have the microphone at the moment, I am going to speak very, very briefly for all of us who have been given the privilege to serve the National Council of Negro Women. To each of you who believe in us, who trust us, who challenge us, we say thank you. We have much more time together. There will be a moment, of course, of ceremony when our ever so special Honorable Sister Secretary, Alexis M. Herman, will install those who have been elected. But for now, I think we have done such good work. We've accomplished what we set out to do. And as far as I can tell, we are ready to adjourn this plenary as we go off to do what is on our agenda. We will reconvene when it is time to do so.